samsaradava nalalidaloka tranaya karuna gunaganatvam praptasya kalyana gunanavasya vande guru shri charanaravinam Mahaprabhu kirtana nitya gita vaditra madhyan manasora sena romancha kampa shutaranga vadyo vande guru shri charanaravinam Shri Vigraharadhana Nityananam Shringarathan Mandira Marjanado Yuktasya bhaktam staniyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Chaturvida Shri Bhagavat Prasado Swadana Triptan Haribhaksha Sangram Kritraiva Triptim Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Shri Radhika Madhavayurapara Madhurya Leela Gunarupanamnam Pratikshana Lolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Nikunjayo no rati kheli sedhai Yayali bir yukti rapekshaniyai Tatrati daksha ativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam साक्षादरेत्वेना समस्तशास्त्रे उक्तस्तथा भायतेव साद्भिः किन्तु प्रभोर्या प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् यस्य प्रसाद भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसाद न गति कुतोऽपि जयं स्तुवांस्तस्य यशस्विसार्यं वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसारी गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसारी गौर भक्तवृंद चैतन्य नित्यानंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासारी गौर भक्तवृंद चैतन्य Nityananda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Madhava Radha, Nila Madhava Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Jagannatha, Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Namamishwaram Satchidanandarupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Brajamanam. Yashoda Biyolukaladavamanam Paramishtamathyanta Trodritya Gopya. Yashoda Biyolukaladavamanam Paramishtamathyanta Trodritya Gopya. Rudantamuhurne Yugmamijantam Karambujayugmena Satankanetram. Muhushvasakam patrireka Stita Gaivam Damodaram Bhaktibaddham. Stita Gaivam Damodaram Bhaktibaddham.
Swagosham nimajantamakypayantam
Vishvalila Virananda Kunde Swagosamimachantam Akyapayanta
Tadiyeshitadneshu bhaktajitatvam Puna prematastam shatavriti vande
Yeshikagesu bhaktajitatvam Puna prematastam satavriti mande
Varam deva moksham na mokshavadim va Nachanyam vareham vare jadapiha
Moksham na mokshavadinva Nachanyamine ambare sadapiya
Idam teva purnata gopalabalam Sadami manyasya nirashtanki manye
Idam deva purnata gopalabalam Sada me manasya manyar
Idam te mokhambojam atyantanile Vritam kuntalai snigdalaktasya gopya
Idam te mukam bojam adyantanilay Ritam kundalai srikaraktasya gopya
Mohoschumbitam bimbaraktadaram me Manasya virashtam alam lakshalabai
Sumbitam bimbaraktadaram me Manasya virastam alam lakshalabha
Namo deva damodarananta Vishnu Prasida prabho dukkha jalabdimagnam
Namo Deva Damodarananta Vishnu Prasida Prabodhuka Jalabdimaya
Kripa drishti vishyati dinamatanu Grihani shamamagya me drakshi drishyat Kuveratmajau bhadramurtyayadva Tvaya muchitau bhakti bhajakritau cha
Vera Atma Chobada Mudya Eva Vaya Mochito Bhakti Bhajokitata
Tata prema bhaktim swakamne prayacha Namo kshegraho misti damodareha
Tata Prema Bhaktim Swakame Prayacha Namo Shegraho Mishti Damodareya
Namaste Sudamne Spura Diptidamne Twadiyodharayata Vishvasya Damne
Namaste Sudamne Spuradipti Damne Tadiyodarayata Vishwasadane
Namo Radhikaya Tvadiya Priyaya Namo Nantalilaya Devaya Tobhyam
Radhikaya Tvadiya Priyaya Namo Nantadilaya Devaya Tubhya
Namo Radhikaya Tvadiya Priyaya
Tubhya.
Namo Radhikaye Tvadiya Priyaya. Namo Nantalilaya Devaya Tobhyam.
Namo Radhikaya Priyaya Priyaya. Namo Nantalilaya Devaya Tubhya.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
One more time.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva.
Damodarastakam ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajika Shasta Saraswati Rishi Shishimadi's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Sukhoshi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Dvaitik Dadhar Sivasni Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Shri Mayapura Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Ganga Maya ki jai, Jamuna Maya ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinda ki jai, Damodarastakam ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Haribo. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavani ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pesta Putri Simati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanami. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvisesa Sunyavani Paskatistani.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Pralada Lada Daine. Hiranyakashipurvakshaha. Hiranyakashipurvakshaha. Shilatanka nakhalaye. Shilatanka nakhalaye. Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha. Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha. Yato yato yami tato Narsimha. Bahir Narsimha, Hidaye Narsimha. Bahir Narsimha, Hidaye Narsimha. Narasimha Madin Charanam Prapadye. Tavakara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringa Keshavadrita नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद भक्ति विघ्न विनाशक लक्ष्मण देव भगवान की भक्तराज प्रहलाद महाराज की निताय गौर प्रेमनंदे
Vrindaye tulsi deva priyaye kesavasya Vrindaye tulsi devi priyaye kesavasya Vishnu bhakti bali devi sachiratay namo namaha Vrindaye tulsi deva priyaye kesavasya Vishnu bhakti prati devi sachiratay namo namaha Vrindaye tulsi deva priyaye kesavasya Vishnu bhakti prati devi sachiratay namo namaha Vrindaye tulsi devi Maharani ki jai Okay. What's it?
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाओ यही अभिलाषी राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाओ यही अभिलाषी ये तुम्हारा शरण लो तारा वांछा पूर्ण हो कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावनवासी मोरा ये विलास कुंजे दियोवा नयने रिबो सदा युगल रूपरासी ये निवेदन धारो शाकिरानुगता कोरो सेवाधिकार दिए गुरु निज दासी दीना कृष्ण दासे को ये न मोरा हो दीना कृष्ण दासे को श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा ये न भासी श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा ये न भासी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति pradakshina pade pade.
Kani kani tapapani brahmahatyani kani cha tani tani prane santi pade krishna pade pade.
Yani kani cha papani brahma hatyadikani cha tani tani pranashante pradakshina pade pade.
Kani kani chapapani brahmahatyani kani cha tani tani prane santi pade krishna pade pade.
Yani kani cha papani brahma hatyadikani cha tani tani pranashante pradakshina pade pade.
Kani kani chapapani brahmahatyadikani cha tani prane santi pade krishna pade pade.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani. Jaya Vrunde Devi, Jaya Vrunde Devi, Jaya Vrunde Devi, Jaya Vrunde Devi. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo.
Tulsi Devi Maharani ki jai. Vrindaye Tulsi Devai Priyaye Keshavaya cha Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Satyavrataya Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulsi Devai Priyaye Keshavaya cha Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Satyavrataya Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulsi Devai Priyaye Keshavaya cha Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Satyavrataya Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulsi Devi Maharani ki jai. Devi Guruvani Pacharini Visesa Sunyari Paskatilista. Oh, Tulasi, beloved of Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire is to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has his wishes fulfilled. Bestowing your mercy upon him, you make him resident in Vrindavana. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in the pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavana Dham. Thus, within my vision, I'll always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of the cowherd damsels of Braja. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maidservant. This very fallen lowly servant of Krishna prays, may always for the love of Shri Radha and Govinda, Tulsi Devi Maharani ki jai. Jai. Mahadevagni Nirvapanam Shairakairabhya Chandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vadhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipradam Purnamritasvadanam
Sarvatmasnam Param Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bhavutani Sarvasaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Smaranena Kala Etadusita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaiva Midrishamiya Janina Nuraga Trinarapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amani Namanadina Kitaniya Sadahari Nadhanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitamba Jagadishakamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavatar Bhakti Rahituki Tvai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitamam Vishame Bhavam Buddho Kripaya Tapapar Pankajastitaduli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galorashrudharaya Badanam Gadagadarudaya Gira Pulakarinchitam Bapu Kadatavanam Agrahane Bhavisati Jugaitam Nimishena Chakusha Prabhusaitam Sunyaitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahiname Aslishva Padam Ratam Pinashtamam Adarshana Marmatam Karotuva
Yata Tata Vavidata Tulampato Mat Pranatastu Saiva Naparaha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Saksastakam Ki
Jai Mama Hovaranai
Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Satar.
Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested your transcendental energies.
They are not even
hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness to enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, think of oneself Lord and stroll on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotion service birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I am falling in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms of the yellow speed. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your holy name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Sheesh.
Namaste Saraswati Devi Guravani Pachari Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskata.
There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. Blasphemy devotees with dedicated life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of the demigods like Shiva and Lord Brahman to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the order of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literatures or literatures of the Sons of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to the imagination. 6. To give some interpretation of the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as full activity karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let's offer our most humble obeisance unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord.
They're just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they're full of compassion for the fallen constituent soul. Vanchakalpa tarabhyascha kripa sindhubhyebhya patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Vaishnava Thakur ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Sumate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityananda. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8, Verse number 8. Asidya udarat padmam Loka sanstana lakshanam Yavan ayam va purusha Iyata vayavai pritak Tavan asav iti prokta Tavan asav, I'm sorry, samsta vayavanam iva asit, as it grew, yat udarat, from whose abdomen, padmam, lotus flower, loka, world, samstana, situation, lakshanam, possessed of, yavan, as it were, ayam, this, vai, certainly, purusha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, iyata, measurement, avayavai, by embodiments, pritak, different, tavan, so, aso, that, iti prokta, it is so said, samsta, situation, avayavavan, embodiment, iva, like. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. If the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whose abdomen the lotus stem sprouted, is possessed of a gigantic body according to his own caliber and measurement, then what is the specific difference between the body of the Lord and those of common living entities? Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. One should note how Maharaj Pariksit intelligently put questions before his spiritual master for scientific understanding of the transcendental body of the Lord. It has been described in many places before this, that the Lord assumed a gigantic body like that of Karanadakshayi, Vishnu, from whose hair pores innumerable universes have generated. The body of Garbhodakshay Vishnu is described as sprouting the lotus stem within which all the planets of the universe remain, and at the top of the stem is the lotus flower on which Lord Brahma is born. In the creation of the material world, the Supreme Lord undoubtedly assumes a gigantic body, and living entities also get bodies, big or small, according to necessity. For example, an elephant gets a gigantic body according to its needs, and so also an ant gets its body according to its needs. Similarly, if the personality of Godhead assumes a gigantic body to accommodate the universes or the planets of a particular universe, there is no difference in the principle of assuming or accepting a particular type of body in terms of necessity. A living being and the Lord cannot be distinguished simply by the difference in the magnitude of the body. So the answer depends on the specific significance of the body of the Lord, as distinguished from the body of the common living being. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. If the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whose abdomen the lotus stem sprouted, is possessed of a gigantic body according to his own caliber and measurement, then what is the specific difference between the body of the Lord and those of common living entities? Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. This is a very intelligent, well thought out question. And spiritual life is based on questions and answers. There's so many questions we should have about understanding the similarities and the differences between Krishna and ourselves. So the Mayavadis get around this by saying, well, Krishna has a body just like we do, and there is no Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's just the Brahmajyoti, which has no form. It's just light that's emanating. So we don't have to worry about these questions. So they dismiss all these questions. So why did Maharaj Pariksit ask all these questions? Because they are relevant. Because if you don't understand the scientific knowledge of God and the differences and similarities that we have with God, you'll never, or we will never be able to go back to Godhead, because we will be making all kinds of mistakes all the time due to this incomplete knowledge. Just like, giving you an example, incomplete knowledge. A baby, when they start crawling around, they become very curious. And one thing that always attracts them is an electric plug. And they like to try and pull the two-pronged electric connection from the plug. And they like to stick things into the plug, like sometimes toothpicks, or if they have something metal, then they really are doing something dangerous. And they could die easily. So therefore, they make these type of plastic plastic inserts to the plug that is tamper-proof for babies or little kids, so that they don't make what's called, they don't fall into the trap of Murphy's Law. Do you know what Murphy's Law is? You know what Murphy's Law is? No. You ever hear of Murphy's Law? You have?
I think I heard.
You know what Murphy's Law is, brother?
I think what goes.
You don't know. You know what Murphy's Law is? What is it?
Some things can go wrong. If things can go wrong, they will.
Not only things can go, the worst thing that can happen, right? That's Murphy's Law. So the worst thing would be the baby or the young child electrocute themselves by playing with the electric plug, right? It's possible. So you have to make everything idiot-proof in the house, because once they get tired of playing with the electric plug, then they'll come and try and turn on the gas stove, right? All they have to do is go like that, and the fire comes on, and who knows what's on top of the fire or the top of the stove. So they're going to go around the house and inspect everything, and you have to respect Murphy's Law, that the dumbest things and the most dangerous things could happen in your house. The other thing is when they start walking a little bit, falling down the steps. That's another big ticket item that happens to a lot of kids. And then swallowing a penny and choking on it and dying. There's so many things they put into their mouth. They don't know. For them, everything is food. So many things can happen. Or opening a window and climbing out on the windowsill and then falling down and killing themselves. All these things can happen in a house. So a house could be very dangerous for a child if the parents are not vigilant and make everything idiot-proof. It's like even in the temple, we have to make everything idiot-proof because devotees always make crazy mistakes, right, thinking they're doing the right thing. So, and there's so many things that are dangerous in the temple also. Like, for example, someone who's an environmentalist, they'll say, oh, well, the temple's not using vinegar to clean. This is really stupid. So they bring vinegar and just leave it in the kitchen, and then somebody doesn't know anything. They mix the vinegar with the Clorox, and they die of toxic fumes, because when you mix an acid with Clorox, it releases chlorine gas, which was used in World War I to kill the enemy soldiers. They outlawed it. But see, you can still make chlorine gas just by mixing an acid with Clorox. So there's so many dangerous things, and unless people are knowledgeable, even the most ordinary thing like putting Clorox, like Parth, he almost killed himself with Clorox the other day. Just using it full strength and then breathing it in, and he started choking somewhat. So we have to learn everything. You have to read the fine print. Well, the fine print is so small in the Clorox box, and people never read it. But if you read it, you'd be shocked what it says. So in the same way, the Mayavadis and the impersonalists, they don't want to ask all these questions. They just make assumptions that negates all these things. But Prabhupada has given the real science of Krishna. I mean, not Prabhupada exactly. He's translated it. It was given originally by Vyasadeva to his son Sukadev Goswami, and Sukadev Goswami expanded it and passed it on to Sutta Goswami, and Sutta Goswami also passed it on to Sonaka Rishi and the sages in Naimisharanya. So, and then the passing on has continued through the disciplic succession of the Vaishnavas. So it's important for us today to study carefully the science of Krishna. Now, I said that I was going to prove that although Einstein was a great, let's say, scientist, as far as knowledge, real knowledge of the universe and real knowledge of God, he was an idiot. He was dumb. He made all kinds of mistakes, right? Because he thought that he was so smart that whatever he said would be accepted as the gospel truth. And it was for many people, but not for devotees. At least I hope it's not going to be for you. So that's why we want to study these things. So Einstein did not believe in a personal God who concerns himself with fates and actions of human beings. This is a factual statement. If you can read about his biography on Wikipedia, at one point it starts explaining about his understanding of God. Some people say, oh, he believed in God, but he didn't really believe in God. He was an impersonalist, and whatever he thought about God, he was an impersonal God, just like the Mayavadis, And his champion philosopher was Spinoza, who was another Mayavadi Jewish philosopher. So he thought that Spinoza was the smartest man that ever lived on this earth, right? But actually he wasn't also. He was also speculating. So anyway, Einstein did not believe in a personal God. So that's number one mistake. He didn't believe God is a person, right? Who concerns himself with fates. That's not F-A-I-T-H-S. It's F-A-T-E-S. So what's the difference between F-A-I-T-H, Prabhuji, and F-A-T-E?
Fate. Fate means, as per our karma, we get it. The fate is the what we keep the faith in the God.
Yes, very good. Thank you. So fate, F-A-T-E, means what your karma is destined to be based on your previous life. That's fate. And faith, F-A-I-T-H, means what you believe in. Right? So two words, there are many words like this in English. They spelled differently but pronounced the same almost. And it can be worlds apart as far as the meaning goes. There are many, many words like that. And there are many words that are spelled exactly the same, but the way you pronounce it can determine worlds apart meaning. Like, for example, minute and minute. They're both spelled the same, but they're both pronounced differently. So, if one time this Iranian devotee was speaking to me, he said, "Can you give me a minute?" I said, "What?" He said, "Can you give me a minute?" I said, "A minute? What are you trying to say? Can you give me a minute? Don't you understand?" I said, "No, I don't understand." I said, "Do you know how to speak English?" He said, "Of course I do. I want a minute." There's no such thing as a minute. It's called a minute. So this is the thing. People think they know English, but English is a very complicated language because it's a mixture of many languages. You have French words, you have Latin words, you have Greek words, you have German words, you have Jewish words or Hebrew words, you have also other language words like, Pandit and Guru. Those are Hindi words, right? So you have Hindi words like Juggernaut. The Juggernaut is in the English language, right? The British put it there because when they saw the Juggernaut festival, they used that as an adjective to point out something that is a irresistible, powerful force, because they saw 1 million people going down with Lord Jagannath in their festival, so they used that as an adjective to explain something that is like an irresistible, gigantic force coming toward you. So here we see so many words in the English language from many different languages, and then some words are pronounced the same, some words are pronounced differently, and have different meanings, and so forth. Okay, so here Einstein does not believe that God is a person, and he doesn't think that God concerns himself with the fates and actions of human beings. So now let's compare what Krishna says to what Einstein says. So if we look at the 4th chapter, 14th verse of Bhagavad-Gita, it says, Namam karmani lampanti, name karma phale spriha, itimam yo bijananti, karma bir nasabadyate. Krishna says, there is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. One who understands this truth about me also does not become entangled in the fruitive reactions of work. So, does God do something? Or does he just make the creation and sit back and watch it? So, Prabhupada says, as there are constitutional laws in the material world stating that the king can do no wrong, or that the king is not subject to the state laws, similarly the Lord, although he is the creator of this material world, is not affected by the activities of the material world. He creates and remains aloof from the creation. Whereas the living entities are entangled in the fruitive results of material activities because of their propensity for lording it over material resources. The proprietor of an establishment is not responsible for the right and wrong activities of the workers, but the workers are themselves responsible. So here, Einstein is trying to turn this upside down, right? And he's saying, look, I don't believe there's a personal God. And even if there is a God, I don't believe that he concerns himself with the fate or actions of human beings. Okay, so now he's making a divide here. He rejects the personality of God, and he says, and if there is some kind of God, he's not involved at all with the. He doesn't concern himself with the fate and actions of human beings. And furthermore, he says, God does not punish people, or he doesn't, let's say, try and correct people by giving them punishment. Well, he's wrong. He's flat out wrong. So this verse, 4:14, says that Krishna is not responsible for the actions of people. He gives them body, he gives them limited free choice, and then it's up to them what is going to happen to them based on their previous karma and on the choices they make now. So the choices they made in their previous karma, that's their fate. The choices they're going to make now will be their destiny in the future. So therefore, he says, the living entities are engaged in their respective activities of sense gratification, and these activities are not ordained by the Lord. For advancement of sense gratification, the living entities are engaged in the work of this world, and they aspire to heavenly happiness after death. The Lord, being full in himself, has no attraction for so-called heavenly happiness. The heavenly demigods are only his engaged servants. The proprietor never desires the low-grade happiness such as the workers may desire. He is aloof from the material actions and reactions. For example, the rains are not responsible for different types of vegetation that appear on the earth, although without such rains, there is no possibility of vegetative growth. Vedic Smriti confirms this fact as follows. Nimitta matram evaso, and so forth, which says, in the material creations, the Lord is only the supreme cause. The immediate cause is material nature, by which the cosmic manifestation is made visible. And then, end of quote. The created beings are many varieties, such as demigods, human beings, and lower animals, and all of them are subject to the reactions of their past good or bad activities. The Lord only gives them the proper facilities for such activities and the regulations of the modes of nature, but he is never responsible for their past and present activities. So, when Einstein says he doesn't believe there's a personal God, that implies many things right there. That means that there is no one who made the laws of material nature. But he does accept that nature functions in an orderly way, and he's overwhelmed by the organization of nature and how it's functioning. And all he's doing is discovering some few parts of it. He never finished his unified field theory. So he had a few understandings of the way some parts of nature function. But he knew one thing, that nature is functioning in an orderly way. But he rejects the existence of a supreme God who is supremely intelligent. He does not have any clear explanation of why it's or how it became orderly in its functioning. And he doesn't accept that people can infringe on, let's say, laws of nature. Now, he explains certain laws of nature, like E equals mc squared, which means basically that energy can be transformed into matter, and matter can be transformed back into energy. And that implies that there's a conservation of energy, which means it's something that is eternal, right? Well, that is correct. What he didn't understand is who did that? Who did that, right? And he didn't understand that there are other laws of nature also. Well, he did understand that there's gravity. What goes up comes down because of gravity. But he didn't understand other laws of nature, such as the law of karma. He rejected the existence of something like karma, because then it means that some superior being established this law of karma by which human beings can be punished for acting in certain ways. This is the one thing he rejected, right? And because of that, he didn't understand really why people suffer. And therefore, he couldn't blame it on God, because he said God's not a person. He couldn't blame it on the living entities because he thought that they were not. I mean, they can be stupid and suffer because of that, but there's no God that made a trap for them. What's the trap? If you reject Krishna, then you become subject to the laws of karma. And the karma can go two ways, good karma and bad karma. But both karmas are actually bad because they'll keep a person in the material world in a cycle of birth and death. All these things he didn't understand. Right? So, therefore, he and and some other Jewish philosophers, after the massacre of the Jews, or we call it the Holocaust in World War II, some Jews became very cynical and said, what kind of God is this? He let this happen to us. We're the chosen people. That's what it says in the Bible. Then what kind of God is he? He should have protected us. Why did he let Hitler kill so many people? Right? Hitler didn't just kill Jews. He killed many more other types of people. And Russians, at least 20 million Russian soldiers died in World War II. And Ukrainians, a lot of Ukrainians were killed also. And also the gypsies, he almost wiped out all the gypsies. Anyone he thought was not an Aryan race being, he wanted to exterminate and just have the Aryan race. And his Aryan concept was wrong also. He borrowed that from India, but he thought it was blue-eyed and blonde hair, tall, Germanic persons. So Einstein was not able to understand why people suffer, other than, okay, it's due to ignorance, but ignorance of what? He was proliferating the ignorance by saying God is not a person. And that he doesn't concern himself with fates and actions of human beings. Of course he concerns himself with our fates and our actions. That's why he spoke Bhagavad-Gita. Just like if you see someone on a branch of a tree sawing it off, you would say, hey, sir, excuse me, you know you're going to fall down very soon. If you said, oh, why don't you get out of here? You don't know what you're talking about. I said, okay, you know. But then that person eventually saws himself off the branch of the tree and falls down. So, in other words, Einstein had no clear understanding of the law of karma, and that God is involved in the fates and the actions of the human beings. Because without God, no one would be able to act. No one would be able to do anything. You know, the soul, the jiva soul, is an emanation from Krishna himself, and completely dependent. Everything is dependent on Krishna, and Krishna is everything because everything is made from his energy. Now, Einstein didn't understand any of those points. Now, the second thing, there's another verse that says, well, to finish this one, the living entity is responsible for his own acts. The Lord only gives him facilities through the agency of material nature. Just like, let's say you rent a Hertz rental car. So they give you the car. They give you you have to give them a license. Then they give you the car, and they ask you if you want insurance. So you can buy insurance, or you can say, well, I got my own insurance. And the car's book is there in the car, where it explains how it works, right? So you have the book, you have the car, and the key, and they give you a full tank of gas. You pay them some money, and you show them that you have a legal license. Now you can drive with the car. Now what you're going to do with that car depends on you. They're not responsible how you drive the car. You're responsible how you drive the car. So Krishna has done the same thing. He gives us the body. The body is a very complicated and highly exclusive type of machine. And he expands our soul, and he gives us limited choice. But he doesn't interfere with our choice. He gives us all these things. It's up to us now to drive the car how we want to drive it. So if you get drunk and you drive the car and kill someone, the company is not responsible because they gave you a car where the brakes work, it has insurance, and it has a proper license, and they paid for the tabs, and you signed a contract saying that you're responsible, if you injure someone else, or if you're responsible if you injure yourself, or as long as the car is working properly, the brakes work, the tires don't go flat when you're driving and so forth. So you can't blame the company. You can only blame yourself. So in the same way, a person who understands, so Krishna simply gives the facilities through the agency of material nature, which is under his control. Anyone who is fully conversant with all the intricacies of this law of karma, or fruit of activities, does not become affected by the results of his activities. So Einstein didn't understand this. And then, in other words, Prabhupada says, the person who understands this transcendental nature of the Lord is an experienced person in Krishna consciousness, and thus he is never subjected to the laws of karma. Well, he didn't even believe there are laws of karma, but there are, and someone who has this knowledge of Krishna, the science of Krishna, they also become free of the effect of these laws of karma. One who does not know the transcendental nature of the Lord, and who thinks that the activities of the Lord are aimed at fruitive results, as are the activities of ordinary living entities, certainly becomes entangled himself in fruitive reactions. But one who knows the supreme truth is a liberated soul, fixed in Krishna consciousness. Now, the second proof that Einstein was ignorant of many things is in the 3rd chapter, 22nd verse, where it says, O son of Prita, there is no work prescribed for me within all the 3 planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. So Einstein said, he didn't believe that God concerns himself with faiths and actions. Of course he does. He's involved big time in faiths and actions. And this verse proves it. Why? Because there's a verse in the purport that says, the Supreme Lord is the controller of all other controllers, and he is the greatest of all diverse planetary leaders. So God is the supreme controller. That means he controls everything. But he does not force people to surrender to him. That's a voluntary choice. Everything else is controlled. How you breathe, how your heart beats, how you make blood, how you walk, how you make your finger go like this. All these things are controlled by God. But he doesn't, just like the Hertz, he doesn't control how you're going to drive the car. If you make a mistake, you're responsible. If you willingly do it, if you premeditate it, you're still responsible, either way. So the Supreme Lord is the controller of all other controllers, and he is the greatest of all diverse planetary leaders. Everyone is under his control. All entities are delegated with particular power only by the Supreme Lord. They are not supreme themselves. He is also worshipable by all demigods and is the supreme director of all directors. Therefore, he is transcendental to all kinds of material leaders and controllers and is worshipable by all. There is no one greater than him, and he is the supreme cause of all causes. He does not possess a bodily form like that of an ordinary living entity. There is no difference between his body and his soul. He is absolute. All his senses are transcendental, and any one of his senses can perform the action of any other sense. Therefore, no one is greater than him or equal to him. His potencies are multifarious, and thus his deeds are automatically performed as a natural sequence. So how can Einstein know what is right and wrong when he doesn't even accept that God is a person? You see? And not only he's a person, he's unique. So we're going to hear now how unique he is. In the 70th chapter of the Krishna book, which is entitled Krishna's Daily Activities, it says, now I'm not going to read the whole thing, I'm just going to read one part of it. It says, after rising from bed, Lord Krishna would wash his mouth, hands and feet, and would immediately sit down and meditate on himself. This does not mean, however, that we should also sit down and meditate on ourselves. We have to meditate on Krishna, Radha Krishna. That is real meditation. Krishna is Krishna himself. Therefore, he was teaching us that Brahma Muhurta should be utilized for meditation on Radha Krishna. By such meditation, Krishna would feel very much satisfied, and similarly, we will also feel transcendently pleased and satisfied if we utilize the Brahma Muhurta period to meditate on Radha and Krishna. And if we think of how Rukmini Devi and Krishna acted as ideal householders to teach the whole human society to rise early in the morning and immediately engage in Krishna consciousness. There's no difference between meditating on the eternal form of Radha Krishna and chanting the Mahamantra Hare Krishna. As for Krishna's meditation, he had no alternative but to meditate on himself. The object of meditation is Brahman, Paramatma, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Krishna himself is all three. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. The localized Paramatma is his plenary partial expansion, and all-pervading Brahman effulgence is the personal rays of his transcendental body. Therefore, Krishna is always one, and for him, there is no differentiation. That is the difference between an ordinary living being and Krishna. So now we're getting into the real core of the science of Krishna. In this, fortunately, Prabhupada translated this and made it easier for us to read the 10th canto, in which there's so much information, specific information of Krishna. Now, we have to learn what are our similarities with Krishna and what are the differences. This is the science of Krishna now. For an ordinary living being, there are many distinctions. An ordinary living being is different from his body, and he is different from other species of living entities. A human being is different from other human beings and different from the animals. Even in his own body, there are different bodily limbs. We have our hands and legs, but our hands are different from our legs. The hand cannot act like the leg, nor can the leg act like the hand. The ears can hear, but the eyes cannot, and the eyes can see, but the ears cannot. All these differences are technically called svajatiya vijatiya. The bodily limitation whereby one part of the body cannot act as another part is totally absent from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's no difference between his body and himself. He is completely spiritual, and therefore there is no difference between his body and his soul. Similarly, he is not different from his millions of incarnations and plenary expansions. Baladeva is the first expansion of Krishna, and from Baladeva expand Sankarsara, Vasudeva, and Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, and from Sankarsan, there is an expansion of Narayana, and from Narayana there is a second quadruple expansion of Sankarsan, Vasudeva, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Similarly, there are innumerable other expansions of Krishna, but all of them are one. Krishna has many incarnations, such as Lord Nrsingadev, Lord Boar, Lord Fish, and Lord Tortoise. But there is no difference between Krishna's original two-handed form, like that of a human being, and these incarnations of gigantic animal forms. Nor is there any difference between the action of one part of his body and that of another. His hands can act as his legs, his eyes can act as his ears, or his nose can act as another part of his body. Krishna's smelling and eating and hearing are all the same. We limited living entities have to use a particular part of the body for a particular purpose. But there's no such distinction for Krishna. Now look, if you understand this, then you can see through every one of the man gods in India. They can't even come close to this. See? But as long as we don't understand the science of Krishna, we will be duped, we will be fooled, we will be cheated, we will be misled very easily. And how do they mislead people? They do it by the very clever trick of canceling things. You cancel that Krishna is a person, like Einstein did. You cancel that he's a person, like the Mayavadis have done. You cancel Bhagavad-Gita, like Asat, the so-called kangaroo, says. Why are you reading an old book like that when I am present before you, and I am the present avatar, right? So see, they trick you by canceling things, by closing the door. Why read Bhagavad-Gita? Why read Srimad Bhagavatam? What? The sages meditated for 1,000 years to figure out what would be the best solution for people suffering in the age of Kali Yuga, and it was Bhagavatam, the literary incarnation of Krishna, the exact, complete science of Krishna explained in depth. This will make you happy. This will give you eternal life. This will purify all impurities in your mind and your body, and you can go back to Godhead easily if you hear this every day. Now, who is hearing it every day? Even our devotees don't hear it every day, let alone the people outside, you see. So in one way, the Muslims, by being very strict about certain things, are right. You know, the kids go to the madrasa. They don't learn all the junk that that's taught in the Big Bang Theory, all things like that. They learn Quran. They have to memorize. Many of the kids have to memorize the whole Quran by the time they finish their education, and they can recite whole parts of it. Now the Christians had the same thing, but they didn't do it. They don't do it anymore, but they used to. Back only about 150, 200 years ago, Christian ministers would memorize most of the Bible, and they could quote it. They could go on for hours quoting the Bible, right? And this was also the process in the Sanskrit tikis or schools. Kids would memorize the entire Bhagavad-Gita. They would the whole Krishna Sahasranam Sutram and the Purusha Sukta and the Narayana Sukta and this Sukta and that Sukta, right?
So yesterday, somebody posted a message. Christians, they copied Vishnu Sahasranam and made
Jesus Sahasranam. Yeah.
Amen Jivaya Namaha, Amen Balaya Namaha.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah. No, Amen Jesus and Mary Namaha. Yeah. Amen. Amen is like Om for them now. No, they're very clever. They're very, very clever. But they're not copying the main thing. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Let them copy the right thing, right? Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Just like there's this one woman in Seattle. She's trying to copy everything that we're doing. Like, she has some food truck. It's not a real food truck. She just delivers raw food to people, right? But she calls it a food truck. And then she does festivals, like Diwali festival and Color festival and things like that. And then she tries to do all these things that we do. But there's one thing she doesn't copy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. If she was going to copy the best thing, that would be it, right? But no, they don't do that. So we see this is the science of Krishna. By understanding how Krishna's body is different than our body. Our body is made up of matter and spirit. Krishna's body is all spirit. But it's a body. It has a form, right? I mean, we're seeing his form every day in the temple room. So it says, in the Brahma Samhita it said, Angani yasya sakalandriya vritti manti. Krishna can perform the activities of one limb with any other limb. So any analytical study of Krishna and his person it is concluded that he is the complete whole. When he meditates, therefore, he meditates on himself. Self-meditation is by ordinary men, designated in Sanskrit as soham, is simply imitation. Krishna may meditate on himself because he is the complete whole, but we cannot meditate, and we cannot imitate him and meditate on ourselves. Our body is a designation superimposed upon ourself, and the soul, Krishna's body is not a designation. Krishna's body is also Krishna. There is no existence of anything foreign in Krishna. Whatever there is in Krishna is also Krishna. He is therefore the supreme, indestructible, complete existence or the supreme truth. Krishna's existence is not relative existence. Everything else but Krishna is a relative truth. But Krishna is the supreme absolute truth. Krishna does not depend on anything but himself for his existence. Our existence, however, is relative. For example, only when there is light of the sun, the moon, or electricity we are able to see. Our seeing, therefore, is relative, and the light of the sun and moon and electricity is also relative. They are called illuminating only because we see them as such. But dependence and relativity do not exist in Krishna. His activities are not dependent on anyone else's appreciation, nor does he depend on anyone else's help. He is beyond the existence of limited time and space, and because he is transcendental to time and space, he cannot be covered by the illusion of Maya, whose activities are limited. In the Vedic literature, we find that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has multi-potencies. Since all such potencies are emanations from him, there's no difference between him and his potencies. Certain philosophers say, however, that when Krishna comes, he accepts the material body. But even if it is accepted that when he comes to the material world, he accepts the material body, it should be concluded also that because the material energy is not different from him, this body does not act materially. In the Bhagavad-Gita it is said, therefore, that he appears by his own internal potency, Atma Maya. Okay, so this is just a few paragraphs of this 70th chapter of the Krishna book. The Krishna book and the whole Srimad Bhagavatam is explaining the science of Krishna. Even the greatest philosophers and the greatest scientists, greatest mathematicians, they don't understand even 1% of this science of Krishna, let alone all the rest. So there are many different, in this paper that I wrote, there are many different verses that, and we'll go over this the next couple of days, that show all the things that Einstein got wrong when it comes to the universe, although people think he's an expert in the universe, and when it comes to God, and when it comes to man's position in relationship to God, he got so many things wrong. And not only those things, but also about the universe. He had an inkling that there has to be a unified field theory, otherwise how could he explain the order of the universe, right? But he rejected the personality of Godhead. So how can he achieve the unified field theory when the unified field theory is Krishna himself? He unifies everything by his infinite energies, and he himself is the unified field theory, because there's no difference between his body and his soul. Every one of his senses can do all the same functions as the other senses. So right there's huge difference between the human being's body and Krishna's body. But who is going to understand it? Who's going to take the time to understand this? We should. And the best time to understand it is? No, not morning. Brahma Muhurta. You know what Brahma Muhurta, you know what the definition of it is? 3 hours before the sunrise. Those are the 3 most important hours in the day. That's when you can learn the most, you can make the most spiritual advancement at that time. And you can hear things and remember them much better. Most people are sleeping. Most of your kids are sleeping right now, right? So how are they going to learn all these things? It's very important to wake up at least 3 hours before sunrise. So that means you have to take rest early. None of this staying up late on the internet and all that stuff. You have to take rest at the latest 10 o'clock, but better even earlier. You get better sleep by going. By the way, there was an article in the news. You can live longer if you go to sleep by 10 o'clock. Do you know that? Look it up. Look it up right now. You can't say the knowledge is not there. Even the karmis have the knowledge. You can live longer if you wake up 10 o'clock, if you go to sleep at 10 o'clock at night. Huh? You can live longer if you go to sleep by 10 o'clock at night. If you don't find it, then I'll show it to you tomorrow. Huh? What does it say, Prabhu? Read it into the microphone. Read it into the microphone.
Exact time to go to sleep to help you live longer and lower chances of stroke.
Yeah, lower chances of stroke, and you can live longer, right?
Yeah.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's an article by Aryan Saurabhi Shiraj. It was published very recently, 9th November. Very recently, yeah. You may have heard how important it is to get your 8 hours of sleep per night.
Is he in India?
Yeah, Shiraj something, yeah. You may have heard how important it is to get your 8 hours of sleep per night, but depending on when you need to get up in the morning, this is not always possible. Many of us are still trying to work out the perfect bedtime in order to wake up refreshed, but now it is finally been revealed. Now it is been revealed.
Yeah,
As if they are
revealed a way long time ago.
as if they are discovering it now.
Revealed in the Srimad Bhagavatam 5,000 years ago.
Yeah. Going to bed between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. is the golden hour to best reduce your risk of dying from heart attack or stroke, new research suggests.
New research.
New research. British
In other words,
academics.
they're taking full credit for this, right?
Yeah, they might even file a patent.
Yeah.
British academics tracked 88,000 study participants and found those who went to bed after midnight had a 25% higher chance of developing a host of health conditions.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway,
And then there's a lot.
I made my point. All right, we'll stop right there and continue. We're going to study for the next couple of days the science of Krishna, so that we are not fooled by all the phonies, including Einstein, because he's a phony when it comes to knowledge of God. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
We have one friend. She's a doctor here in US, and she had mentioned this to me many years back, maybe like 5-10 years back, that his father,
Her father,
he's not educated much, but they were living in very small town in India. So she said, I'm very thankful to my father. Why I became doctor is he did one thing correct. Always from my young childhood, he woke her up early in the morning before sunrise. Every single day. She said, I am very, very thankful to my dad that from the childhood, early age, he was waking her up before sunrise. That's one thing he did right for her, and she became doctor, and she's very, very successful materially. So
well,
materially also is like benefiting.
okay, I'm not going to make any comment on that. I have something to say about it, but I'm not going to make a comment now. Haribo, all glories to Prabhupada. Who's going to sing?